Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. And for me, it's good evening from Germany, depending on where you are logged in from. We are delighted to have you at this month's Coaching in Context webinar. My name is Dr. Okokon Udo. I'm the director of the evidence-based coaching program here at Fielding Graduate University. A few housekeeping things before we get started. Please mute yourself at all times, except when you have to unmute to either ask a question or contribute to the topic. For attending today's session, we have one ICF CCEU available. To be eligible for that, you will be required to complete a survey, which will be posted towards the end of this webinar. And once that is completed, you should receive the certificate from our Fielding University registrar within 2 to 3 weeks. We are honored to have as a speaker for today, Andy Nelson, and he will be speaking on the topic of coaching for confidence, helping our clients unleash their creativity and soar. That's what Andy will be speaking on. So I'll just introduce Andy real quickly and I will turn it over. I could take a lot of time to introduce Andy, but I'll go with the shorter version of his introduction, which is that for 35 years, he worked as a leader in healthcare, retail, technology, and manufacturing, and is currently an ICF certified executive coach. And I still remember the day Andy finally said goodbye to his job, which is not an easy thing to do when you are jumping, fully into something that you are passionate about. So Andy helps leaders establish a single authentic identity they truly want to go beyond their own expectations in work and in life. And he coaches executives at the largest Fortune 500s, as well as in the nonprofit sector. Andy is also a keynote speaker who inspires and motivates. All his work is an extension of his zeal for life and passion for helping others. And I'll share a few fun facts with you. One is that Andy performed his original musical composition, Solitude, in the UK, and is writing his first book, Survivor's Gratitude, The Gifts of Cancer, Clarity, and Connection. And I have enjoyed some of his keynoting sessions as well as his gift in music. His wife, Michael, Jean, and 3 college-age kids give him deep gratitude and joy. So it is my honor and pleasure to welcome Andy to this webinar. And if you would join me in doing so, that would be greatly appreciated. So over to you, Andy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okokon. I am just really thrilled to be here and excited to get introduced to this community, which I've heard so much goodness about. So thank you so much for inviting me. And I see we have a lot of other folks joining here as well. So maybe I'll just vamp here for a minute, as we'd say in music, while we wait for a few other folks to join. Wonderful to see all your faces. I welcome you to go on video. That's wonderful. I understand if you don't want to or can't. But when I'm not screen sharing, there will be a couple opportunities here that I want to get input from the group. And so it's always lovely to have your faces available for that as well. All right, so I'll start screen sharing here and we'll get going. So I just want to come back to what you may have all seen in our advertisement, if you will, for this event. These are the learning objectives that I put out there for today. Let's understand together, what keeps us from being creative. Let's look at some practical ways that our clients, and us for that matter, can practice our own creativity and how we can help our clients do that. And I want to help us foster a deeper appreciation for the roles of this model that I've tried out here with several of my clients, and I want to introduce you to. It's the SAIL model, and sense, adapt, initiate, and ignite, and learnings. And this is one way we can help our clients build confidence as well as creativity. So that's what I want to share. And those of you who have a keen attention to detail will notice that that first word, sense, was originally solitude, but I've evolved the model and changed it a little bit, and that's what I'll be sharing with you today. So just a little bit more about me. This is me in several of the situations that I find most joy. On the bottom, you can see some of the companies that I've been affiliated with over the years, but here's me playing some music there in the bottom left-hand corner with a great musician named Lynn O'Brien. Upper right-hand corner, that's me and my wife having a great time near the ocean. We do some business work together as well. And then the upper left-hand corner, this was a group back in November that business partner Marcy Hierman and I facilitated at Cargill. We just had such a great time. And I love this picture because it shows not only Marcy and me having so much joy with what work we were doing, but a lot of joy from the audience as well. So I just want to share that as a little bit of background of me. And now, before I go into just sharing, some of what my research has uncovered and some of my personal experiences uncovered with clients and myself, I want to harvest some ideas from the group. So I'm going to stop the screen share for now. And the question, I just want to popcorn some ideas out from all of you. What keeps us from being creative? This might be from your own experience. It might be from an experience with a client. But what has occurred to you all? What keeps us from being creative? I'm going to open it up. You can put it in the chat as well, but I'd love to hear your voices as well, as if you're willing. What have you noticed that keeps us from creativity? Steve, I saw you went off mute.
Yeah, I off mute. The first thing that comes to mind for me is time. I just think about I'm in a hurry a lot and I have a lot of things to do, and I tend to go to tried and true methods and processes and things like that. So that's what comes to my mind.
Like, why try something new if I have something I've done before that's going to be faster?
Yeah, or pull in insights from other people and create a generative conversation, ideate, all of that. I mean, it sounds so wonderful, but sometimes it's best just to sort of step in a way that I've always stepped into.
Yeah, got it. Very good. Who else has ideas? What keeps us from being creative?
Yeah, I'll have a full confession here because it just feels like a right thing to do. Just the desire to be near perfect.
So a little bit of a perfectionism. Yeah.
A little bit.
Maybe a lot.
A lot. Yeah.
Andy, Yemi has a hand up.
Yes, I'm sorry I missed the hand. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hi everyone. Andy, is great to be here. So I see myself as a creative, and most of the time when I do some work with people, with other people in the line of my work, they feel that they're not a creative, as it were. There's a box that has been created, and it's like there are specific people or special people that are meant to be creative. And so they kind of they feel like they don't fall into that box, and so they're not a creative, and they don't have that confidence to say I can create something. Meanwhile, by maybe with coaching or some other things, they eventually get to the point where I can't believe I did that. I feel that everybody's creative in some way, but that box that we don't know who ever created it has made it such that it feels that they're not creative at all.
I really appreciate that, Yemi. This idea of I feel a little bit of maybe an identity that some folks may have, like I'm just not a creative type. You might be, Yemi, but not me. Thank you so much for that. Maybe one or two other ideas.
There is a comment in chat from Carl on inclusive and unready cultures and leadership, and then the other one is fear of criticism.
Uninclusive, unready cultures. Yes. We'll talk about that, the power of diversity in creativity as well as the role of fear is very strong. Thank you for that, Carl. Yes. Any final thoughts about that? What keeps us from being creative? Anybody else want to chime in quick? All right.
Oh, there is a hand. I think, Karen,
there
did
one more
you
hand?
raise your hand? Yes.
Sorry, Karen. I got to
That's
start watching
okay.
for the hands here better. Thank you.
That's okay. I'll wind it up for you. I think sometimes we as adults think or associate creativity with play, and we don't do a lot of play as adults. And I think that might be a limitation for some. If you're asking someone, what do you do? How do you express creativity in your life? That might be a stumbling block for some.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Karen. Boy, you all are good. You've hit a lot of the key things that some of my research uncovered, as well as my experience. So I'll continue on with a few of those things, and I'll screen share again. So let me just get my notes organized here. One moment, please. So here's a few additional ideas. Fear. One or more of you mentioned that. Absolutely. That's a big blocker for many of us about being creative. And let's dive a little deeper into that here. I don't know if perhaps some of you are familiar with Karpman's drama triangle. And there's a few ways that can show up with what I'm calling ego's triangulation here. If we want to protect our ego, that can be related to the fear, of course, and that can prevent us from creativity and a whole bunch of other things. So controlling, protecting, or complying. Those are three of the ways it can show up for us. Instead of being creative, well, let me just control the situation, right? I've got this perception is that's going to be weird if I get creative or do something out of the ordinary here, right? Let me control it. Let me protect myself, my core self, my reputation. And this is emphasized by one of the authors that has written, he's written the book Flow, as well as Creativity, which I'll refer a few times, Mihai, Csikszentmihalyi. He is in some way wrote the book, or one of the books on creativity, so has a lot to say about this. He really emphasizes this protection part. I want to protect myself. Let's not get too creative here. Let's keep it in the box. Let's keep it straightforward. Let me do something that I'm familiar with before. Or I want to comply with expectations. Maybe it's going to be weird if I do that in this meeting, right? This is a professional meeting. We can't get all creative and artsy here. Let's not do that. And just mentioning a little bit more on fears here. Uncertainty, the element of surprise. So this theme of surprise is going to come up for us a few times. Are we trying to meet expectations and keep it fully under control and have certainty about what's going to happen? Or are we open to the surprise, whether it's good or bad or otherwise, that might come up? So surprise will be one of the key themes that comes up here in creativity. Other things we might be afraid of, the shame or the abandonment. If I get creative or do something unusual here, or am I going to get abandoned? Or people are going to push me away and say that was just, that was out of the realm. So just touching on a couple more things here too. One of you had mentioned this as well, but the idea of having a lack of diversity in your team, your network, your environment, that can really hold back the creativity as well. Reliance on the familiar. Let's just do what we know really well. And this risk of being like-minded. I'll mention here just a personal reference that I see some of these posts sometimes on LinkedIn about, we're looking for starting this group and we want some like-minded individuals who can join this. And I get the intention, which often seems really good, but I'll be honest, I'm getting a little triggered by that lately when I see like-minded. I think there can be a little bit too much emphasis on that. And part of me wants to go against that and say, well, I'm imagining, okay, let's get a group of 10 people who have a mind like Andy's. Like, well, heaven help us. I don't want 10 Andys in the group, right? Like, let's get some other minds in there. Let's look for some unlike-minded folks who can give me some feedback on this creative idea. So this lack of diversity can really hold us back if we're trying to build something creative as a group or even as an individual. And then last but not least, the fixed mindset. I bet some of you are familiar with Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset. And this is, also what one of you had mentioned about this idea of, I'm just not, I think it was Yemi who mentioned, well, this person might be creative, but I don't see myself as creative. The story we might tell ourselves is my talents and abilities are unchangeable. I've just made that judgment. Maybe that's my identity. I just can't do that stuff, right? That's the fixed mindset as opposed to the growth. We can always learn something new. We can always try something new, which is the last point here about that resistance to experimentation or play. And one of you mentioned play, and we'll touch on that some more too. But if we don't want to experiment, if we're not open to being surprised or playing or getting the feedback on that, that can hold us back as well. And there's just one final thing I want to mention here, and I'm going to mention this, pull this from something in my studio right here, actually. So this gift was given to me by one of my work partners. I think you can see it all there. So this is, I believe, a watercolor image, and it was from my friend Dana Del Val, and she sent it to me just a few months ago when I was just undergoing some new medical treatments. And she sent me a card, and she sent this inside of it. And she said, I've been practicing just a little bit of this. I've never shared my artwork with anybody. I've just started doing this. And when I saw it, I was just blown away by her kindness and the beauty of what this scene was, just so peaceful and grounding and a lot of creativity in there. And when I called her up and just said how touched I was, she said, "Oh, thank you. I was really out of my comfort zone to send this to you. I've never sent it to anybody else. And I knew you would be supportive and welcoming." So I share that because, number one, good on Dana for having a growth mindset, right? I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to practice something new, and I'm going to share it with somebody that I've got, I think, enough trust in that they can give me some feedback on this, and it will be mostly one of welcoming and embracing. So there's something to that pattern that we'll see repeated as well. And, fear is such a strong blocker, as we've noticed. You called it out right away as a group. It's such a strong blocker of creativity. So let's double click on that a little bit. By the way, all these, the authors that I mentioned, Mihai and the others, they'll all be at the end, so you don't have to try to remember the spelling of Mihai, Csikszentmihalyi. Thank goodness, right? That's a little hard one to spell. So they'll all be at the end for you, okay, in the deck that will be shared. So let's talk about fear some more. So there's several, I'll call them sub-emotions that are rooted in fear. And this is from the work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. All that you can see here, right, from grief, apathy to anger. Kubler-Ross says these all really go up to fear. And if we're going to talk about fear and facing our fears on the way to creativity and confidence, it's important to mention these. Now, others may make arguments that, well, we're kind of doing a broad brush here. These are all under fear. They have their own ways of life, if you will, which is absolutely true. But yet, I think there's some advantage to looking at them in this group. And here's why. Her other comment is that all emotions are really rooted in fear or in love. And being able to take a look at, okay, if we want to face our fears, taking a fresh look at what are the sub-emotions, again, if you will, of love, there can be a real advantage for our clients, I think, in taking a look at this. So, just to popcorn out one potential coaching question around this, right? Happiness. What would make you just remarkably happy out of this situation, right? Or even empathy in a two-directional way. You could say, well, if you're trying something creative for the first time in this meeting, who do you sense, or maybe it's after the fact, you could say, who showed you empathy after the fact? Let's say this was a crash and burn, right? Like you were creative, it did not go well. Who showed you empathy? And how might you want to reach back to them if you haven't already? Diving into the love aspects of this can help us avoid or at least curtail some of those fears that we might have. And just one more that I want to mention here is wonder, or what we could also call curiosity. There's so much to be said about that. We will talk a little bit more about curiosity, quite a bit more actually. But notice how the tie-in here of love and wonder and curiosity. So again, if we want to help our clients work past their fears of creativity, leaning into love, or one of the fruits or the subgroups of love here, really important. So I want to move on, but I've done a lot of talking here. Any questions or comments that folks want to chime in here before we move on from these? Either in the chat or just verbally call it out, you're welcome to as well.
Yeah, Andy, I have a comment. I love what you just shared, in the contrast between the emotions rooted in fear and that rooted in love. There is a gentleman by the name of DeWitt Jones, a former National Geographic photographer that I follow. After he retired from his professional photography with National Geographic, he decided to build a leadership program on and from his photography experience. And in this one video that he has that I have used, I would say 40 times in my professional career, the title is Celebrate What's Right with the World. And he says something to the effect that people have asked him, oh, you're avoiding all the other stuff that are happening. And he says, celebrating what's right with the world gives you the energy to fix what's wrong. So that's what that's what you triggered in what you just said. Because if we focus on the problems and the challenges all the time, we have no chance. So that was my takeaway. So thank you.
Beautiful. Celebrating what's right with the world.
Okakan, does this look familiar?
That's it. There you go.
It's an old VHS tape of it's this wonderful, wonderful.
Thanks for I have used it. I have lost count.
I
Sorry,
have
how
to.
many
I can
times?
recite all the little the Dewar Scotch fishing scene, and oh geez, it's lovely.
Wow.
So it's a mindset shift. That's what I heard, and I'm like, yes.
Oko, I'm going to build on that just a little bit. And by the way, it's really nice to see you. One of the things that this reminded me of is the work that Siraj Shamad has done on positive intelligence and talking about the sage brain versus the saboteur brain, and really focusing on pulling out the sage brain, which is all the things that you've identified there on love. Yeah. And the saboteurs are all the things that keep us from really doing the things that our sage brain wants us to do. So that I was reflecting on that as well as you were talking about it, Andy. So thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Yes, Shirzad has excellent work, that positive intelligence stuff. Love it as well. Yeah, great. Thank you for that reference as well. Okay, beautiful. I will move us on here again and screen share one more time. All right, so one thing I want to double click on then is curiosity, since that's going to continue to be a theme of what helps us get and stay creative. Let's double click on that a little bit. So more audience participation. Question for you all. And this will be better, I think verbally, but you can put something in the chat if you want. What is this? Simple question. What is this? What do you guys think? No answer is wrong. Creativity welcome. Or being obvious is welcome to also. What is it? There's a couple in the chat. We'll look at that. Black spot. Nice. Ooh, somebody said understanding. Black bean. Nice. Other thoughts? Again, you can just call it out or you can type it. Looks like we're in a chat mode here. That's fine. There's a marker. Yeah, a large period. Coaster.
Tunnel, understanding, coaster, large period, marker, a question with a dot in the center, a hold to the universe.
Wonderful. Yeah. A whole. Okay. Well, you all can be congratulated for your creativity and your inventiveness here. Depending on who you ask, it is indeed a black dot, of course. And the person who did this exercise has done it with groups of adults, typically, Dr. Mike Bechtel. And in most of the cases with the adult groups, he literally takes a marker board and just puts a marker, right, and puts it in, and everybody says, yeah, it's clearly a black dot. Like what's wrong with you? That's the answer, right? When he asks elementary school kids, I bet you know where this is going. Not a single kid says it's a black dot. Here's some of the answers they've come up with. It's a squashed bug with no legs. I love that one, right? It's a ball. I like this one a lot too. It's the top of a telephone pole. That's pretty creative. It's a hole in a golf course. My other favorite is it's a black moon in a white sky. So again, you all, you can tell I'm working with some coaches here. This is excellent. You have the creativity on tap there to bring out some other thoughts. And isn't it wonderful? And somebody mentioned this about play also. The playfulness of these children's answers, just right out of the gate, right? And that nobody said it's a black dot, but yet our initial intuition as adults is, let's just call a spade, right? This thing's a black dot. Let's not make it harder than it is, right? So there's something about taking a look at childhood and creativity that can help us a little bit more. So just one more questions here, and then I'll let you off the hook for a little bit. But I really appreciate your participation as part of this. So there's a few things that when I first looked at this picture, I was noticing, and I'll call them out in a moment. But some things that you notice as well. What do you notice about this picture as you see it of the children?
It's reminding me of when I used to play swing and statue as a child, where we would spin you around and then you'd freeze.
Ah, okay. So what is swing and statue, you said, Marcia? Very good. Thank you. Okay, could be a swing and statue type game going on. Yeah. What else? Other things you notice?
There are references to joy, unbridled joy, vibrant in the chat.
Joy indeed. Yes. Yeah, you can
Carefree
see
is coming up too.
Carefree. Yeah. 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 There's so much here. Picture worth 1,000 words, right? And so much about noticing these kids at play. So some of the things I noticed, obviously they are playing. I noticed on the far left, there's the kid holding his foot, and it had me wondering, is this, did they invent some sort of rule of this game that, the person who got tagged has to hold their leg or something? Was he just doing it for fun? We don't know. And joy, you mentioned, so much joy, like on every single face you can see pretty much, right? There's the girl running at us here with just so much joy. And I want to scoot this over to the left-hand side, because I just noticed this morning as I took a fresh look at it. Notice way on the far right. So this child looks like he recently fell down, just maybe at that moment, but there's joy on his face. He's laughing hysterically, right? And when you think about as adults, when we're falling down, getting injured, or have a failure of some sort, it can be hard for us to say, oh, that was, so what? Got a little injured and get up, right? But there is something about what children experience. I think we all know this intuitively, but to be able to see it in the looks on faces is really something that can be powerful. So let's talk just a little bit more of the wisdom of our childhood here. So scoot back here one moment. So, it seems to me, so some research say that kids, human beings are most creative at ages like 3 to 5. Okay, so very young, but we can keep practicing this as adults. And I love that somebody mentioned play at the beginning here, because children don't really know they're being creative, right? I mean, I think that's fair to say. It's my hypothesis, at least. They just keep imagining, playing, inventing, and telling stories with what's going on. Like no toddler, 2-year-old toddler said as their first words, "I think I'll be creative today. Let's do this," right? They're just being themselves. It's part of their natural unfolding. And the curiosity and wonder, which you may recall was part of that love category, right? That is something that children tend to do quite naturally. And this is a quote from our buddy Mihai again here from his book Creativity. If being a prodigy is not a requirement for later creativity, and by the way, his research seems to support that, you don't need to be a prodigy to be this creative person later on in life, but a more than usual keen curiosity about one's surroundings appears to be. So, one way that we might help our clients is asking about what were you curious about as a kid? Or what's one way that you just loved playing when you were a kid? If we can help them patch in and remember some of that, it might harvest something new for them these days. So this curiosity and wonder, can help us, all of us, keep planting the seeds or reharvesting the seeds of learning and growth. And I love this quote. It actually came from, I think, this book, which I'm going through right now, Designing Your Life. I'm not sure if anybody's gone through that, but there's some good stuff in there. They mentioned Mihai's other book, Flow, which is the book he's probably most famous for. He's very prolific. And these folks who wrote Designing Your Life said, flow is really play for adults. And I love that because when you think about, as it's so true what somebody said, this, as adults, we think playing is like, wait a minute, there's work and there's play. Now let's not mix the two, right? Let's keep them separated. If we're playing, we're probably not getting work done, right? That's not cool. But if we can think about getting in flow, and maybe you've heard some of this before, but I think there's so much brilliance in learning about flow. It's essentially being, in the zone. It's associated with peak performance and creativity, so it's good that we're talking about it today. And one key question to ask ourselves or our clients is, when did you last lose track of time? Because that is a key indicator that you're in flow. If you lost track of time and you were creating something, or even if you weren't creating something. And I was mentioning to Okakan before we started today, I'm a musician and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But when was the last time I was in flow? I am happy to say it was preparing for this presentation. I was just having so much fun putting these pieces together and enjoying it. And I did. I had the gift of enough time where I was losing track of time and just kept working on it because it was so much fun. So that's a good way that we can help ourselves and our clients lean into flow, curiosity, play, some of these things that we knew probably intuitively as children, but we can tend to lose track of. Okay. So let's go just one step forward here, and then we'll get into a little bit more of an interaction here. I've got speaking of surprises, I have one surprise for you that I haven't even told Okakan about here in terms of creativity. So stay tuned here as we lean into that. So let's look into learning and growth in the fears we face on the way there. So I'm guessing some of you are familiar with some version of this, comfort zone, learning zone, and growth zone. I like this version of it for our discussion today because since fear has so much to do with blocking or trying to be a saboteur for our creativity, I like that we've got a comfort zone here, which of course, that's where everything's in control. We feel safe. Then that fear zone is before the learning zone, where we're, thinking, what are people going to think about us? We may find excuses. We don't have that confidence yet before we get to that learning zone, where we are acquiring new skills, extending your own comfort zone if you can repeat that, right? The power of yet, as we sometimes say in coaching circles, right? Oh, I can't do that. You can't do that yet. You haven't tried that. I'm not going to try that. Well, you haven't tried it yet. What might you try to lean into some of that creativity? And then this outer ring, I added the word panic there in red, because that's one of the ways this was taught to me, is that one of the secrets of the growth zone is that it's also the panic zone. And so if we're it's another layer of fear, right? Of like, and perhaps more intense fear of like, I can't do that. Like, I may have this big dream of, doing that stuff, but I can't do that right now. I've got this stuff that I have to execute. Setting new goals instead of continuing to work on the ones that you had before. So what I like to say to my clients sometimes is, the secret is, if you're willing to go to that panic zone, that's where the real growth can happen. If you're really willing to go there and lean into it. So another awareness, of course, is that fear is a natural step toward all learning and growth. And so to be able to own that for ourselves and for our clients, help our clients own that and say, yeah, you're a little afraid of what's going on here, a little concerned what the outcome is going to be. That's very understandable. Let's work through that. Let's talk about how we can help you work through that. So with that, I want to personally demonstrate this and tell you a little bit about what's happening behind the curtain, okay? So I'm going to give you a little bit of a music demo. And I'll be honest, as I just said that right now, I felt my heart rate go up. I'm feeling a little fear about this. I want to peel behind the curtain so that you know what's going on, right? Because our clients and we are all going to experience this. The fears and the concerns that are coming up for me right now are, well, yeah, you're a musician, you've got this stuff, but this is a professional environment. It's the Fielding Graduate University. I don't think you should be playing music in this thing. That feels a little playful, right? It feels like you're just a kid who hasn't grown up. What's the problem here? I'm also concerned because I'm a brass player. I'm a trumpet player here. Here's what I'm going to be playing on. And I don't know if we have any brass players in the audience, but especially playing a brass instrument without warming up, there's risk in that. I could crack notes. It's a cold instrument. It's probably going to be flat. All these concerns as a musician, probably. I can feel it in my throat right now. Got some fears right now, right? Like this is, I'm going out on a limb here, right? What's this going to be like? And as my dear friend and teacher Okakan once taught me, when you feel the buzz, then you can say, yeah, you know what, and I'm excited to do this. I'm excited to go there. I'm feeling a little afraid, but I'm going to do it anyways, because I want to demonstrate the power of getting past your fears, doing something a little out of the ordinary. And I'm excited to do this. I'm actually excited to do this. So I'm just going to play, off the top of my head, I was thinking about a melody today of a song that some, if not many of you, are probably familiar with. And so I'm just gonna play that melody on the trumpet. I haven't played it today, so again, this is going very fresh and live without a net, as they say, right? So I'm just going to play an initial note just to make sure I kind of know where my bearings are. I'm going to play it the key of concert F, which is G on the B flat trumpet here. So. And the other thing I want to mention, what I'm going to do is that I've learned this as a trumpet player. If I can get my body into it, that helps bring the rest of me into it. So one of the things I practice doing, just unbuttoning here, is making sure I have a full tank of air in my lungs so that I'm not being crouched and small, filling up my lungs before I play the notes here. So just going to play a note just to make sure I'm kind of ready, and then I'll play the melody I'm thinking of. All right, here we go. Okay.
Andy, I have a question for you. I don't know if it was being filtered out. It was hard for us to hear.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So would it
Are
get
you
kind of,
using, yeah, maybe, are you using your headphone or something?
yeah,
I
yeah.
think deactivating it might actually work better. Just,
Let me try that. I
just a
wonder
thought,
if,
because
yeah. So it was filtering it out.
yeah,
Andy, I think some in technology, maybe on your end, is it just shut it off
It was trying to
because it
filter
wasn't.
it. Okay.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was trying to. It just turned it off, and then it
Yeah.
came back just a little bit, and then it turned off. So it
All
seemed like
right.
something on your end might have, as soon as it.
Yeah, it was probably the headset. So I switched to my internal microphone on my laptop. Can you guys still hear me talking?
yeah. Let's see if that.
Why don't I try that? I'll play it again.
Mhm.
Well, there you go. See, now I have another chance to overcome my fears because you didn't hear it the first time. I'm demonstrating more than I planned on. Here we go. Let me just do a test first to make sure you can hear it, okay? Better? All right, here we go.
Oh, it did it again.
Did you guys hear it that time?
It was a little off and on. Yeah, it wasn't, at least for me, I couldn't get the whole thing.
It was enough to realize that it was What a Wonderful World.
Okay, good. I'm glad the melody was recognizable.
All right. I've switched
And
back to this headset. Can you hear me still?
yeah, and
Okay.
the energy and spirit was obvious
Okay.
during both rounds. You know that you were into a zone.
Yeah, very good. Good. Well, I'll see, look at that. We just learned something, right? I learned something about the technology of this. Out of all the failures I could have imagined, it wasn't the one that I expected. We had technology that was holding back actually hearing that. So that's a good change that I can make for next time. Yeah, and I'm glad that we had video. So even if the audio wasn't very good, you could see probably that it was fun for me, once I started, which I think is a good thing for us maybe to remind ourselves and our clients sometimes too. Once you make a decision to try something and say, I am going to, how does that go? Courage is seeing the fear, but doing it anyway. But having, an appropriate plan, but deciding to do something creative or out of the ordinary. Often, at least for me, and I think for many of us, once you start in the process, there can be a flow that you can welcome as it unfolds. And whatever happens, there will be things that you are likely to learn from it, which is a good thing to remind ourselves as well. Okay. Well, thank you for tolerating the poor audio and being willing to offer some reflections nonetheless. All right, I will go back to the screen share here. Conscious that we just have 15 minutes left, so I will try and make sure we keep moving here and stay on time. Okay. So let's walk through this very briefly. It's what I call my SAIL framework. And it's one way that I would suggest we can help our clients try something new, especially something creative, and make sure that they have the guidance from us as a coach, perhaps, and others around them to make sure they have some support. So just very briefly, let's start on the right-hand side here and toward the front of the sailboat. The sensing part of this is really, what are you sensing? What's going on for you? What do you see, hear, feel, be present? Those of you who've been through the Shirzad materials about positive intelligence will recognize this. There's one of the exercises that Shirzad uses that's about feeling your two fingers so so intently that you can feel the ridges, feel the fingerprints on the two fingers, or gazing at something intently and then having your vision blur, but really being present, which as coaches, we're good at helping our clients do that, right? But what do you sense? Let's get present. Let's get clear first. And then going to the adapt part of it. Okay, what do you want as a human being, as a client here? Thinking internally, externally. I love some of the work that Jim Collins does about first who, then what, and starting with why, or what's important to you about that, which again, we're good as coaches in finding some motivation behind it. And writing, I would say, is very important at this stage as well. Not everybody is in the practice of journaling, but getting clear and writing some of that down, the adaptation is important. And then moving to initiate and ignite, actually the execution part of it here. Let's light a fire, let's do this. Booking on calendar may sound oddly specific, but I think that's for many of us, we live by the calendar. And so having our clients actually put something on the calendar that they're going to try is very important. And then the learnings are what's in your wake? You know, what did you learn from this? And having that inform what's next. Okay. So I'm going to keep us moving on this with now looking with a little bit different lens, or a more focused lens, I should say, on thinking about creativity and also confidence. What our clients might be sensing here. And I'll kind of move quickly through this to make sure we get through the rest and leave some time for reflections. They might be sensing some fear, as we've talked about. They probably also have some desire. Well, I do want to learn how to be creative. I just don't know how to do it. And what else might you feel at that point? We might ask your clients, okay, what's one creative step you could take? Maybe they have that. Maybe we challenge them. What's even bolder than that? I'll mention here the BOTN version. And what I mean by that, I learned that from a leader at one point. Back of the napkin. What I appreciate about that is it's like literally taking a cocktail napkin or something like, well, just quick and dirty. This is what we might do, right? There's something powerful about you only have that much space and it doesn't really matter, right? Nobody's ever going to see that. So it can take some of that fear away, like, oh no, this is a PowerPoint slide. No, it's not. It's at the back of the napkin. Let's do that. And who's with you? Very important. When are you going to do it? Let's execute this. Who are your reinforcements? Who's with you? And being able to welcome the surprises and the joy. Also, we've seen joy happen quite a bit, or come up quite a bit. In the learnings, gracefully recognize both us or our clients' effort as well as results. This is some of the wisdom of the growth mindset. It's recognizing the effort for effort's sake. I have worked on this. I did my homework. I tried something out. It may have gone great. It may have failed miserably, but I did it. I put the effort forth, right? And then also recognizing the result, whatever that was. But recognizing both is very important. Journaling again, taking some notes about it, and planning that next experiment. And this repetition, this cycle, and this is some of the wisdom that I bet we've all tried as coaches with our clients of, they come back a couple sessions later and look at the difference. Something that they thought was impossible the first session or two now has become pretty routine for them. How great is that? This repetition does build that confidence, right? We see it in ourselves. We see it in our clients. So I want to double click on, again, looking at about 10 minutes left, I want to scoot us ahead. So let's talk a little bit more about confidence as well as creativity. And then this is the last part of kind of our I'll call it the thick material, okay? But I think there's some insights in here that could be helpful and practical for us all. So I did some research in a few different sources here. What really helps build confidence? Here's a few different things, confidence specifically. Listing out our strengths. So using something like Strengths Finders to be able to help our clients really look at that, right? But you don't necessarily need that. Setting goals, thinking long-term, out and thinking about that growth zone, which is also the panic zone. What do you really want? What would make your heart sing? If you could wave your magic wand and show up to your life 2 years from now, what would you love to have, right? Some of those questions that we're probably used to asking. Giving yourself grace. This is what happened, but this is what I learned. And having some body language awareness, specifically with, I'm aware of mine now, just as I said that, right? But what can help you feel confident and look confident. Okay. So here's where it's going to get a little bit more fun for us. So then for creativity, let's think about both of these. Here are some things that help build creativity. And so you can probably already imagine some questions that you could formulate or some reflections or challenges for your clients around creativity. Experimentation. What if you just, this is a big meeting coming up. I know there's a lot of, powerful folks there, but what if you thought of this as an experiment where you could try something? Or maybe it's a smaller scale thing. How could you experiment with a trusted group before you went into this larger group, right? And you can see the rest of them here. Again, I culled from several different sources and then kind of narrowed it down. Okay, so here's where I think it's going to get more fun and even more practical for all of us. Here's the best news. Out of all the things that were uncovered about both confidence and creativity, many of these that are in the middle, help us with both confidence as well as creativity. So look at some of the common themes that we've uncovered today. Collaboration and diversity. Diversify your collaborations. Think outside the box. Look for those unlike-minded folks that you might invite in. Leverage your network with that as well. Getting out of the comfort zone, the growth mindset, love versus fear, and then that repetition and practice, right? So you see the common themes that we've talked about, but how great that if we can lean our clients into this and ourselves, we'll be getting both more creative as well as more confident. And I'll do but wait, there's more. There's one more thing I added in here because we've talked about fear and love. So I wanted to add this as the bonus here in the end, is that thinking also about love, coming back to these elements. So the happiness, the empathy, certainty, and honor. I bet you can imagine formulating questions. If we just thought about this central zone, the things that help build confidence, creativity, and love, not fear, I bet you can come up with a ton of questions. And for the sake of time, we won't do that now. I want to end with a few minutes. But again, you'll have this deck and want to think about that. Here are a few questions, that I formulated as I was thinking about creativity, and specifically creative experiments our clients may have, that I wanted to share with you. So coming back to the foundational part, thinking about what was it like as a child when you loved to play or imagine or invent? Maybe what's one thing you were proud of? How might you apply that creative energy now? That might be a key point for some of our clients to say, get them in that zone where they're imagining being that kid. They created something, the outcome didn't matter, or they were just in flow, even though they didn't know that term yet, right? How might you apply that energy now? What if it didn't matter how it turned out, right? Maybe our clients aren't ready for that. Maybe say, well, it does matter. Okay. How might you experiment? Again, in that safe space to build up some practice and confidence. And then just briefly touching maybe on one or two of the things in a creative experiment. I think if our clients, when they have a specific task they're coming up with, that can be a real crucial time zone, if you will, or time period, to be able to say, okay, this is coming up. How are you going to show up for yourself? You're able to give yourself some grace there? What do you know for sure? Well, just like the example I gave you today of playing trumpet, what I know for sure is I'm going to learn something. And I did. One key thing I learned is that this built-in microphone does not work well when you're playing trumpet. Do something different next time. And that's okay, right? We tried something. We tried a couple things. We're going to try something else next time. And who will accept you no matter what? Leaning into some of that empathy and that love. And then don't forget, I do appreciate this last one, because sometimes, what if it goes wildly, unbelievably well? Sometimes we so think of, this comes from some of the wisdom of positive psychology. We are so good at saying, well, what went wrong, or what's going to go wrong? How bad could it be? Yeah. What if it goes wildly well? Oh, well, then I'll have learned I can actually be creative. Well, then I'll learn that I've got more support than I thought. Okay, great. Last but not least here, this is just because I've talked quite a bit about Mihai, Csikszentmihalyi. This I thought was very interesting from his book, Creativity. He talks a lot about surprise, the element of surprise, to build creativity. Be surprised with something every day, surprise at least one person, write it down. The curiosity we've seen as a theme, but that surprise I thought was I need to noodle on that one myself a little bit more, and really welcoming surprises just like we had today. So again, you've got this all in the deck that'll be shared, these pictures, as well as all the links to what's there. And with that, I just want to say thank you. I have gratitude for being invited to this. I had so much fun. If you want to connect to me on LinkedIn, you can find me there. Just scan the QR code. I'll leave it up for another 30 seconds. Like I mentioned, I do business with my wife as well, keynote speaking and some coaching work that we're starting to do on the right. And then on the left-hand side is my individual website and work. So I'll just leave it up for a moment and open it up for, I guess we just have a couple minutes here, a minute or two, if there's any questions or additional reflections.
We have 2 minutes for any quick comments or responses to Andy before we wrap up our webinar. So just unmute yourself if you feel comfortable doing it that way, or you can put it in chat, or you can raise your hand, like whatever works for you.
I'm checking the chat here as well. There's the
A
webinar
bunch of
survey,
thank
so
yous.
make sure to do that. Yeah, thank you. You're very, very welcome.
So Andy, thank you so much for showing up in the way that you did and for stimulating our curiosity, creativity, our sense of play. I will never look at the dot the same way again. I can promise you that. I will try to figure out something that is less predictable, like what happened today.
Nice.
So thank you so much. And so let's put our hands together for Andy for today. I did post the survey link. If you need the CEU, please complete that within the next couple of days. I would say by Monday to be precise, and then we'll get that in so you can get your certificate. So thanks for coming, and there is a link for our July 10th webinar. We hope to see you there. Thanks for coming. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye-bye now.
Okakan, where will the link be that I can provide some
Right,
feedback and get?